The architecture of consideration. Darkness cannot be thought. The light cannot be imagined. The invisible cannot be seen, spoken, or written down. Whenever we're talking about darkness, and we're saying that darkness is the same as light, we have to be careful, because the symbol of darkness is a symbol for what cannot be thought. None of this can be held the way people think it can be held. Eternal cannot be thought. Infinite cannot be thought. The invisible cannot be seen, spoken, or written down. So we are only dealing in symbols. And even that folds in on itself, because to say we are speaking of it is already off, because you cannot speak of it. That is why this is occultism. It is hidden. All my life, even up to this point, I still forget, and I have to remember that we are not speaking about it. You cannot speak about it. So then what are we speaking about? Not it, but the symbols that point, and even those are only held through intuitive recognition, not direct statement. We are speaking about these symbols. Trying to remember to remain humble all the way through your discourse of life, learning things and discovering things and feeling like you are having epiphanies and stages of development, overcoming things, becoming worse or better, weaker or stronger. You come into this world naked and you leave this world naked. What conspires and what happens cannot be held the way it seems like it can be held. The same way that what we are talking about right now is not what it seems like whenever we are talking about it. We use words like God and darkness and God the Father, and it seems like we are talking about it, but we are not, because you cannot. It goes beyond even saying that you cannot. It keeps going beyond that without end. What I wanted to explain is that it only goes one way. Darkness and light is the same. Darkness is the same as light, but light is not the same as darkness. The light and the invisible is the same. The light is the same as the invisible, but the invisible is not the same as the light. It only goes one way. It lands upon the light. This reality seems upside down, backwards, and inside out. It is almost like darkness is light, and darkness casts a shadow which becomes our reality, and we stand within the shadow of the light. It is backwards. Imagine darkness as light and the light as an obstruction. Hold your finger up. What we call light hits one side of your finger, and on the other side there is like the moon. That becomes like the moon. That becomes the reflected world. So darkness is light shining upon what we call light, and what we call light is the lesser light, because as soon as it is talked about, it becomes thought and idea and imagined. But more properly, it becomes obstruction. The moment it collapses into idea, it is no longer pure. It is the finger. It is the stumbling block. It is the obstruction. It is the lesser light. That is also the light. There is a difference between thought and I have a thought. That is not the same. I have a thought is already like saying I have an idea. You have thought, and then an idea within that, and then you think about it, and then you imagine, and then you construct and reconstruct, and it becomes something considered. This is the realm of consideration. The moment it becomes considered, it has collapsed. That collapse is the obstruction. That is why I was saying that all of our faculties are operating within obstruction. We exist within a body, with mind, heart, soul, intention, reason, meaning, sensation, all of our cognitive faculties operating within sense and reason, and all of that is already within the obstruction. This reality, as we think, as we sense, as we move, that is all obstruction. That is why the lesser light is not just some small thing. It is the whole realm of consideration. The easiest place for me to describe this is the third person of the Godhead, because this is where it is invisible, and this is where we find the visible. It is like water that is pure and clear, and then light shining through it, that you have to be careful, because people will visualize literal water and literal light, and that is not the point. It is symbolism. The point is that it is like placing a grain of sand or a seed into the water. Now there is something in there. It is not pure anymore. As soon as there is something there, that is thought collapsed into idea. That is how I think of it. And that is not only within man. It is within man, yes, because this is a fractal reality, but just as much as it is within a cell, it is the whole universe. And it is not, because it is like a dream. So you have to be careful. The third person of the Godhead is where it is two ways at the same time. It is invisible, and then that is where we find the visible. This is where the divine masculinity and the divine femininity are found, but not in some simple split. It is dual paradoxical simultaneousness. The man and the woman is the same. The man is the same as the woman, but the woman is not the same as the man. It only goes one way, same as I was already explaining. This echo of the fractal of asymmetry, this dual paradoxical simultaneousness, echoes all the way through. Just as I was saying, darkness and light, the light and the invisible, it lands upon the light. It always lands back upon the one. Darkness, breath, wind. The breath of darkness is the light. Light first, then fire. Breath, light, and wind, fire. This is spirit. Light, breath, fire, wind. So now we are talking about a trinity. Father, darkness. The Son, the light. And spirit, which is invisible. Father, darkness, is where we place the symbol called non-consideration. The Son, the light, is the consideration of non-consideration. The spirit, which is invisible, is where we place consideration. But you can see how that is not possible in any simple way, because at this point it is invisible, and within that invisible we place visibility. The only way that can happen is by the collapse of thought into thinking, into I have a thought, into idea, into imagination, into construction and reconstruction. That is the obstruction. That is the finger. That is the lesser light. That is also the light. Darkness cannot be thought. The light cannot be imagined. The invisible cannot be seen, spoken, or written down. But this is where it gets seen, spoken, and written down. And whenever that cannot be, and it is, what do you think we have? We have the masterpiece of the master plan. There is nothing that happens within the dream that is not of the will of the Father and by the obedience of the Son. There is nothing new under the sun. The beginning and the end is the same. All the work is done. When I speak of the light, I do not mean light bulbs or the sun in the sky, or stars, or sparks, or fire, or glowing things, or luminescence in the ordinary sense, though those are forms of light scientifically. In the way I am speaking of the light, you have to place yourself within a dream. You fall asleep horizontal, your eyes closed, and then suddenly you are somewhere else, vertical now, eyes open. Everywhere you are looking is lit up. There is not a sun in the sky lighting everything up, and there is not a light bulb in the room lighting everything up, though it may appear to be that way, and because you're in the dream and do not realize you are dreaming. You assume that is the source and cause for everything being lit up. Unknowingly, you are the light. But you are not the light. It is not even the one laying horizontal. It may appear and seem to be like that, but this is a fractal reality where we are dealing with the infinite. The light is invisible. It is clear. It is the uncaused cause that cannot be called the source. And what you witness within the dream is that same uncaused cause, now an effect of action and reaction. So when I say you are the light, but you are not the light, that is why you cannot place the light upon yourself and say, I am the light, I am God, as though words have captured something. Words do not say it. All of this is like a dream. It is metaphysical. It is not held within time. All is forgotten. The beginning and the end is the same. There is nothing new under the sun. That does not mean what it sounds like in the shallow sense. It means that within infinity, perfection produces perfection. They all remains all. That is also why religions form the way they do. One person takes one angle, another person takes the other. One side gets held onto and becomes stagnant, and people form sects and systems and positions because they become fixed on one side of what cannot be reduced to one side. So the architecture of this is asymmetrical. Darkness is the same as light, but the light is not the same as darkness. The light is the same as the invisible, but the invisible is not the same as the light. The man is the same as the woman, but the woman is not the same as the man. It goes one way. This is not contradiction. This is dual paradoxical simultaneousness. And that is why you have to be careful all the way through. Because the moment something is thought, then I have a thought, then idea, then imagination, then construction, then reconstruction. That is already the collapse. That is already the obstruction. That is where good and evil become possible as distinction. That is where visibility appears within the invisible. That is where the reflected world appears, like the moon on the shadow side of the finger. That is where we stand now, within the shadow of the light, in the realm of consideration, in the lesser light, in the obstruction. Amen. Let it be so.